Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Shop Talk 22. I'm your host, Robert O'Brien, and we'll be telling the stories and jokes this morning. Thanks for participating. I appreciate everybody signing in and spending some of your Friday morning with me. And helping me run the stream here is all the way down there in São Paulo, Brazil. I have Cesar and Manuela. Welcome, Cesar and Manuela. How are you doing this morning?
Hello.
They're going
Everything fine, thank you.
with the drawing today. I always give something away during my live streams, and Cesar and Manuela are going to be doing the drawing for us down there. So I'll put you off screen here, Cesar and Manuela, and I'll be back to you here in a few minutes.
Thank you.
All right, let's get back up here to just me. There we go. Thank you, everybody, for signing in. By the way, now that you've already signed in, you're on YouTube, just go ahead and take a couple of seconds and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Also, click on that little bell icon that you see down there in the corner. And that way, you'll be able to know when I'm going live, and you'll also be notified when I go live. And you'll be entered for winning free drawings. I always give away free stuff. So go ahead and participate and do that. Also, put in the chat box down there where you're from, because I always like reading the comments. I enjoy reading where everybody's from. It's really amazing, the technology everywhere from around the world. And I do read everything after the fact here, if not during the stream. So I want to know where everybody's from. So go ahead and put where you're signing in from. All right. Oh, here's the girl from Ipanema. Why don't you come on over here?
Oh,
This is my wife, the girl from Ipanema, also known as Miss Brazil, and she has brought me some coffee, compliments of the Acoustic Coffee Company. Thank you so much for that.
you're welcome.
And she's also brought me some Brazilian cheese bread. Look at that. Oh, I'm going to enjoy that. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Really
All right.
appreciate that.
You have fun.
Thank you so much. We'll get going here in just a second.
Bye.
See ya. By the way, the Acoustic Coffee Company is one of the sponsors on Luthier Academy. So if you're into coffee, go ahead and take a trip over to their website, acousticcoffee.com, and check out what they have to offer in the way of coffee. All right. Thank you, everybody, for logging in here again. Holy cow, we got somebody all the way from the Netherlands. Look at that. Herman, welcome aboard. Appreciate you checking in. Got somebody from Oregon, Northern Idaho. Mark, somebody's getting an echo. I don't know if that's on my end, but if anybody, if there's ever a problem with the audio or the video, please let me know, because I'm in my shop here just talking to myself. So let me know if anything's going on there. South Carolina. Let's see what else we got here. Brunswick, Georgia. Man, I am from Georgia. That's in my stomping grounds down there. The UK. Nick, how you doing? Good to see you, Nick. Glad you're on board there. The Big Swede. Now, I know the Big Swede is not really in Sweden. He's right here in Littleton, Colorado. So welcome aboard there. Los Angeles, Ann Arbor, Michigan, Austin, Texas. My God, look at everybody. Ontario, 30 minutes from Toronto. Look at that. Czech Republic. Wow, that's way over there. Thank you for tuning in. Heck, it's probably nighttime over there for you. Mexico, Peter, thank you for tuning in. And it looks like Mark's got his echo fixed. Houston, Texas. San Diego. Another one from Texas there. All right, everybody, thank you for signing in. I really appreciate it. Let's go ahead and get started here. I want to talk a little bit about the Luthier Academy website real quick before we get going. I'm even going to show you my screen here. Here is the Luthier Academy website. If you take a trip over there at luthieriacademy.com, you'll see that I've got some online courses, teaching, advisory committee. I'm going to click on that, and you will see that I've got some very well-known people that are professional luthiers from around the world. So just take a few minutes and go check out the Luthier Academy Advisory Committee there, and you'll be able to see that there's some really powerful, knowledgeable people on there. And I really appreciate them being part of the Luthier Academy Advisory Committee, because they help us keep running here and offer me a lot of support and advice. And so I certainly appreciate that. Also, if you click on the sponsors page, you'll notice that there's some sponsors there that help keep the lights on here at Luthier Academy. And they also make our life easier as luthiers. So please patronize them and, purchase their goods and services, because if they go away, our lives become a lot easier, or excuse me, a lot harder as luthiers. You'll also notice that if you click on the online courses page, there's my latest course, the 6-day acoustic guitar building course. It is available as of just this past week, and it's also available at a 10% discount. No promo code needed. The price already reflects that 10% introductory price, and it will be going back to the normal price here in just a few days. So if you're interested in getting the 6-day acoustic guitar building course, now's the time. You'll also notice that the Falcate bracing course, let's see if I can zoom in on that list a little bit. Falcate bracing with Trevor Gore will be released here coming soon. I've already got the editing done, and here in just a few weeks we'll have that ready to go. So if you're into Trevor Gore's Falcate bracing, then it's a fantastic time to go ahead and get that course. If you click on the 6-day acoustic guitar building course and then scroll down here on the left-hand side there, you'll notice there's a tool list. If you click on that, up pops a tool list. And there's the materials I use in the course. There's the power tools, which we'll be talking about today. All of the hand tools, jigs and templates, other tools and supplies. I mean, it's all there. So, and that's available for free. If you guys are interested in the tool list, you're just getting started, you're wondering what tools I use, then go ahead and take a look at that. And it's free. Like I said, just pop online there and download it, offering it for free. I've never offered a tool list before. I was worried about, I didn't want people to feel like they had to buy my tools in order to be able to build the guitar. That's not the case. And I think you'll see that here in a little bit when we talk about power tools. I think you'll be surprised at how very few power tools I actually have here in the shop. So, free tool list, whether you buy the course or not. If you have any questions throughout the live stream here, just go ahead and put it in the chat group. I'll try and glance at the chat group every now and then here. And if you have a question, go ahead and tune on in, or put it in there in the chat box. Richard from New Jersey, thank you for signing in. Certainly appreciate that. So if you got any questions, let me know. A few announcements before I start talking about the power tools here. Drawing for the free course. I always give away things during my live streams. And if you want to enter the drawing for the 6-day acoustic guitar building course, that's a $357 value right now because it's on sale. Go ahead and click on that link. It's pinned at the top of the chat box there. Go ahead and click on that link, and you'll see that you'll be entered. All I need is a name and an email address, so you can be online to win. Also, everybody's a winner here today. Even if you don't win the acoustic guitar building course, I'm going to give everybody a 10% off coupon, but you have to enter. So I have your email address. I'll send that out after the fact. So you'll get a 10% off, and you can apply that towards any of my online courses. All right, a few more announcements here. New course we talked about, upcoming course we talked about. Oh, the Mark Adams School of Woodworking. I will be teaching a high gloss spray finishing course at the Mark Adams School of Woodworking in Franklin, Indiana, coming up in September 19th to 23rd. And you don't have to have an instrument ready to go to participate in the class. If you don't, we'll just use sample boards. But if you're interested in that, I think it's full. I'm not sure. But if you want to get on a waiting list, or perhaps on next year, I'm going to be doing it again next year in July, go ahead and contact the Mark Adams School of Woodworking and get on the list there. That's the September 19th to the 23rd. On the 24th and 25th of September, I will also be teaching a French polish class at the Mark Adams School of Woodworking. So if you're interested in either high gloss finishing, spray finishing for instruments, or French polish for furniture and instruments, then go ahead and contact Mark Adams for that. Also, LMI is having a 30% off sale, and while supplies last, on all of their finishing supplies, waterstones, things like that. So contact LMI, www.lmii.com, if you're interested in the 30% off discount. We're all about saving money here at Lutherie Academy. StuMac also is offering a 15% off on a tool called the Safety Planner. Now, I'm going to be mentioning more about that tool here in a few minutes when we start talking about the power tools. So if you're interested in a 15% off on that tool, then you have to click on a link. And it says there, I think I sent you that link down there in Brazil. If you could just post that in the chat box there. It's also in the description box on YouTube about the live stream here. There's a link there. If you click on that link, it takes you to the StewMac site for this particular tool, and you can get 15% off. And you'll see it's a very, very useful tool. I'll be showing that here in a few minutes. Oh, by the way, that link is not valid forever. It's valid for today during the live stream all the way until September 2nd at midnight Eastern Standard Time. So if you're watching this in the replay, sorry you missed out. It's only valid from today until September 2nd, 2022, because I imagine some people will be watching this down the road. But click on the link, you get a 15% off. All right, let's go talk about power tools. Let me get over to my pictures here. I'm going to show you some power tools of things that I use in my shop. All right, if there's any questions, oh, we do have a question. Donald Forsyth there has a quick question. Let's see what he's got. Robbie, I have a question about drum sanders. Do you recommend a minimum size and brand for a small home shop? I'm going to be talking about drum sanders here in just a minute, just a little bit, Don, and I will talk more about that. Let's see here. All right, let's pull up the pictures. Winnipeg, Canada. How you doing, Dean? Thanks for signing in. All right, here we go. Let's talk about some power tools. I think you're going to be surprised at how very few power tools I actually use. I have a lot here, but I don't use very many of them. So here we go. Here it comes. Let me see if I can get myself on the screen here too. You guys can see me talking. There we go. Hey, I'm down there in the left-hand corner. Okay, the first thing you see there is a drill press. And that is a benchtop model. Let me see if I can zoom out just a little bit. You'll see it sitting on a rolling cart there. But a drill press is very important. Oop, let's see. Drill press is very important. I use it for precision drilling, obviously. But there's one of the things I use it for is for drilling precision holes, like in bridges, for example. And I also use it. This is an interesting technique. I call this the drill press router. I learned this from Cesar down there in Brazil. I learned this from his father about 25 years or so ago. And this, what I'm using is it's a drill bit stock. Let me see if I can actually draw a picture there for you. This right there is a drill bit stock that's been sharpened on the end at a 45-degree angle. And I use it to cut out complicated areas like the top of a peg head or something. And that's what you see me doing there. It's a very simple tool, but you need a power tool to run it. And that's another reason why I have that drill press in my shop. Great way of doing things. There's another drill press, and what you see in the tool there is the safety planer there. I'm going to be talking a little bit more about that here in just a minute. It's on sale at StewMac, 15% off. Got to use that link that is in the chat box there to get it. But what I'm doing is thicknessing sides, and I also use the thickness of the backs, and I use a drill press for that. Now you'll notice this is a little different drill press than I had just a few minutes ago. I bought this drill press when I moved back from Brazil about almost 25 years ago here to Denver, Colorado. I sold all my tools in Brazil. I got off the plane here in Denver and went right to a tool store and bought all my tools back. And this I bought for $99. It was a reconditioned Delta drill press that I bought almost 25 years ago, and I used the heck out of it. And just a year or two ago, I sold it for $75 when I bought a new drill press. So the moral of the story is you don't need a big drill press. You don't need a big floor model to do what you need to do for lutherie. A small benchtop model, just a few $100 is all you need. That one that you saw that I showed just a minute ago, let me see if I can get back to that. There, that is a jet benchtop model. However, it's very heavy duty. It took two people to put it up on that stand there. It's a little heavier duty than that small little drill press that you see here in this picture. But you don't need a large drill press. Let me talk a little bit about the tool you see there. This is called a safety planer. The original safety planer was made by a guy, I believe it was a guy in Nebraska or Kansas or someplace. And I've talked to him on the phone a couple times over the years, and he either retired or passed away, and he stopped making the tool. And there for a while, China or Taiwan or someplace was making it and selling it through Woodworkers Supply. And some of those would not cut butter. I've had some come through my shop with some students over the years. Some of them wouldn't cut butter. Some of them were decent. But Since then, StuMac has started making this tool, and it's 15% off. Like I said, click on that link, and it's only valid until September 2nd, midnight Eastern Standard Time. You get 15% off. It's a great way to thickness back and sides. Here in a few minutes, I'm going to be showing a drum sander. Somebody asked a question about a drum sander. I consider that a luxury item. Before I had my drum sanders, I would use the safety planer to get it close to final specs, and then a scraper. And I built a lot of guitars that way. So that's one way to build guitars. All right, let me just check the questions here. Tim Crawford says he cuts his binding channels by hand. Let me get myself out of the way here. I cut my binding channels by hand, but I'm interested in routing them. Well, I'll talk about that here in a few minutes. You'll see where I use a router to do that. And the Big Swede has a question. Is the chuck held in using a Morris taper? Yes, it is a tapered chuck fit there. Just press it up in there. Good morning from Carlsbad, New Mexico. Welcome aboard there, Craig. Certainly appreciate you logging in to spend some time with us here this morning. All right, let's move along here to some more pictures. And for drilling, you're also going to need a handheld drill. Now, this is a little bit overkill. This is a big DeWalt 12 volt. You don't need anything quite that powerful or big. It's kind of clunky, but here you see my student. We're installing fret markers on the side of the fretboard. I also use a handheld drill for installing fret markers on the front of the fretboard. So some type of non-precision handheld unit for drilling tuner holes and putting screws in and things like that. So that's a very inexpensive tool. You can buy those here in the United States very, very cheap. All right, moving right along. Bandsaw. A bandsaw is what I consider one of the safer tools in the shop because it's not going to kick back on you, although it will still bite you. I mean, if you put a finger into it, you're going to come up missing a finger. But I comment to all of my students that, I consider the bandsaw to be one of the safer tools in the shop. And I made that comment to one of my students, and he just started laughing. I said, well, what's so funny? And he said, well, my grandfather was killed on a bandsaw. Now, how is that even possible, right? But apparently his grandfather was killed on a bandsaw. He was putting some big tomato steaks through this old industrial type bandsaw, and it flipped and kicked him, popped him on the head or something. So maybe it's not the safest tool in the shop, but I do consider it to be fairly safe. So bandsaw, you don't need a big industrial floor model bandsaw. This is just a very small benchtop model. That's just a 10-inch Rikon. It's the standard model, doesn't have the upgraded motor. One thing I like about this model, the Rikon model, and I'm going to draw a little picture here. This area here, if I could get it to show up, let's see here. There we go. The clearance is about 3.5 to 4 inches, which is just wide enough to do a scarf joint if you're working on a neck. And so you can do that on these small little bandsaws. And I have over to the left-hand side in the picture, you can see that I have a big industrial floor model bandsaw. Let's just slide over to that. That's a big 16-inch industrial Steel City bandsaw. But if you look very closely at it, I have a very wimpy blade in there. Look at how wimpy that blade is. It's just a 1/4-inch blade. So I really don't do any resawing with my bandsaw. I used to do a lot of resawing, and I have another that's stacked over in the corner I didn't take a picture of. I have a big Laguna bandsaw that I use for resawing. My other bandsaws, I just basically use them for cutting out tops and backs and perhaps some braces and things like that. So you don't need a big industrial bandsaw unless you're going to do some resawing, and I don't do a lot of resawing these days. So just this little bandsaw right here, see if we can get back to that. Just that little bandsaw right there, and that's just a few $100s here in the United States. You don't need a big industrial bandsaw. So as you can see, I'm talking you guys out of spending a lot of money. So you can thank me later. I'm saving you money while you're watching the stream. Anna's got a comment here. Let's see what she says. Anna, I would love to get a joiner for squaring up neck blanks and tapering fretboards. I have a small basement shop that is hard to get a large joiner into. Are any benchtop models good enough? Yes. In fact, what you're looking at there is a joiner, and that's the next tool that I have in my shop. I used to use a benchtop model when I lived in Brazil. I lived in a very small studio apartment, and I had a little Delta benchtop model. Boy, that thing sounded like a jet engine taking off when you had that thing on, but it did everything I needed it to do. Now, a joiner is not a necessary item. I think you can get along without it. With a good hand plane and a shooting board, you can taper your fretboards. Just pre-taper them with that bandsaw that I showed you in the previous picture, and then use a shooting board to get it right where it needs to be. And it can be very, very precise. For squaring up neck blanks, I order my neck blanks from LMI, and they come pretty true right out of the box. I recommend not squaring them up until after you do your scarf joint, because sometimes that scarf joint will wander on you just a little bit as you're gluing it up. And if you true it up beforehand, sometimes it's too narrow, especially on my classical guitar peg heads. They come pretty close to final specs. So don't get all excited about squaring up and truing things until you really take stock of how wide that thing is. All right, so there's a 6-inch joiner. I've had that sucker for almost 25 years. It has the standard head on it, the cutter head. It doesn't have the spiral, the nice carbide blades that everybody's using these days. I've often thought about retrofitting it, but it would cost me enough to retrofit that one. I could almost go out and buy a new one. So, but a small joiner is nice, but it's a luxury item. Craig has a comment about buffers. Do you have any comments about buffers? Yes, I do. And I'm going to show you my buffer here in just a few minutes. I'm getting there. So hang on just a minute, Craig, and I'll show you what I use for buffing here in my shop. All right, moving right along. We talked about the joiner. You don't have to have one to build a guitar. In my shop here, I build a guitar in 6 days with students. So I speed things up quite a bit with power tools. If you're working in your own shop, you don't have to have a joiner. All right. The next thing you see there is a planer. This is a benchtop model. This is a 12-inch DeWalt. It's the older model. That thing just sits in the corner and collects dust. I never use it. So if you're thinking about going out and buying a planer, I don't think it's necessary for what I do here in Lutherie. Now, if you're talking about foursquaring lumber and building furniture and things, then perhaps that's something that you can use. I don't find it a necessary item here in my shop. So that thing just sits in the corner and collects dust. Here's a little table saw. I use this thing a lot. However, I think just a bandsaw, could do everything that this table saw could do, perhaps, cross-cutting and ripping. This is a small model that I had made by a couple of brothers. When I was living in Brazil, there were a couple of brothers that made this for me, and it's all made out of Spanish cedar. Now, these two brothers were geniuses, in my opinion. I think they've since passed away. They didn't have much money. They used to sleep on the floor of their shop, but they were true geniuses. This was a fantastic machine. It was turned on to me by my mentor that taught me how to build guitars, Antonio Tessarin, Cesar's father, by the way. He showed me these guys, and I bought a couple of tools from them over the years. I use this tool. One of the things that I really like about this tool is I use it for slotting fretboards, as you can see in the picture there. It's a very small precision tool that I can use for slotting fretboards. Let me show you the innards of that tool. There it is with the lid open. And by the way, there's no adjustment to raise the blade up or down. You raise or lower the table, and that's how you adjust the depth of cut. But all made out of Spanish cedar. You can see over there on the side, I've got a chuck, which I don't use much these days. What I used to use that for was drilling holes in my classical guitar bridges for the tie block where the strings attach. I don't use that these days for that, but just a small little 7 1/4 inch circular saw blade, and boy, that thing is really nice. I use it for ripping braces, but you could certainly do that with a bandsaw. Alan's got a quick question here. One-piece neck versus laminated scarf joint, which is best? That's a good question. And that's one of those questions like, if your wife ever asks you, hey, does this dress make me look fat? Don't answer that question. You want to run from that question. Also, if people ask you about Pepsi or Coke or Apple and Mac or Samsung, I mean, those kind of questions you try and avoid. But I will answer your question. Which one is best? Both. I tend to use the scarf joint because it's less waste on the wood, and our resources are becoming more and more scarce. So I tend to use a scarf joint. I also think the scarf joint is stronger structurally. I had a guitar come into my shop here recently that had an issue. It had been damaged in shipping, and it was a one-piece neck. And so I think the one-piece necks are a little more prone to cracking and breaking. However, I've been told that once you get above the $5,000 or $6,000 range for a guitar, people expect a one-piece neck. I don't know if that's true or not, and I think that's one of the things that needs to go to Luthier Mythbusters. I don't know, but on my personal guitars, I use a scarf joint, a laminated neck, and I've never had anybody complain. Now, in my online guitar building courses, I show how to stack that heel so that it looks like it's a one-piece neck, looks virtually invisible. You can't see the glue lines. So that's a great question. Thank you, Alan. Certainly appreciate that. So a small table saw is a good thing. These days, in fact, I got an email just the other day from Woodcraft. The Saw Stop has come out with a benchtop model or a job site model that's portable, doesn't take up a lot of space. I do find that if you have a regular size table saw in your shop, it usually becomes a junk magnet. Everything gets stacked on that. When you need it, you have to move the junk pile around. Any horizontal surface in your shop collects junk. So I tend to keep those to a minimum. Also, if you're into model making, the Burns table saw, a guy down in Florida makes a very nice machined aluminum table saw. A lot of my students have purchased that and set it up as a dedicated tool just for slotting fretboards. So, table saw, once again, a luxury item. You can do just about everything except slot fretboards with the bandsaw. Speaking of slotting fretboards, if you go out and buy a table saw just for slotting fretboards, LMI will do that for you for about $10. So it's almost a no-brainer. Call LMI and they'll even custom the slot your scale length if you want and whatever species of wood you want. All right, moving right along here. The next picture we've got coming up is a chop saw. Some people call that a miter saw. This is a big industrial 12-inch blade. It's on sliders, so it can do a larger or wider cut. Once again, that mostly just sits in the corner of my shop and collects dust. There's not a lot of use for that. When you need it, but I find that I don't need it very often. A nice hand saw or Dazuki type saw will do just as well. So if you're looking to save money and you don't have shop space, that's probably one that you could take off your list. Good hand saw and a cup of coffee to help drive that arm, and you're in business. See how much money I'm saving you guys today? I mean, all the spouses and significant others out there should be watching this because you're really going to thank me. Send me a Christmas card telling me how much money you saved on buying power tools. This is a tool that is homemade, and I probably could not live without that. I use that a lot. The first thing you'll notice about it is that there is a disc sander on the side of it there. This is a thickness sander, and I'll take that dust hood off here in the next picture. That disc sander, I use it a lot for shaping nuts and saddles when it comes time to do setup. So this is a homemade tool. I'm going to open this thing up here. Let me show you there. What that is this area here is an 8-inch pipe that I found at a scrap metal place when I was living in Brazil. Took it to a guy and he trued it up on a lathe and balanced it, put some weight in it so it spins true. And then Cesar's father, Antonio Tessarin, helped me make a frame here. So that there's a motor on the backside there. It's mounted on a frame. There's a shelf here. And that shelf is raised or lowered by using this right here. You just spin that clockwise or counterclockwise, and that determines the thickness of your cut. If I had to do this all over again, I would make it just a little bit wider. And the reason why is because the width of this thing is not quite wide enough to do a joined back or a joined top. That was the mistake that was made when this machine was made for me. So, back to that original picture with the drill press, I show the safety planer in there. I used to use the safety planer and a scraper to do all of my thicknessing. And so you don't have to have one of these tools. However, I've become quite dependent on it over the years. I think it's a fantastic tool. It's homemade. And somebody was asking about a buffer. I'm going to turn that machine around here in the next picture, and you'll see that what I did to solve the buffer issue. Somebody has a question here, a suggestion for bit to route smaller sound port designs. I'm not having much success on practice pieces. Okay. I'm going to talk about laminate trimmers and Dremels and things here in just a few minutes. But what I use for my sound ports is a Dremel, and I just freehand it. Just throw a 16th or an 1/8 inch bit in there, and I just freehand my pattern that I've stuck on there with Xeroxed it and printed it out, and then cut it out with that. Now the question, here's a good question for you guys. Do you cut the sound port before or after bending your sides? Aha, go marinate on that one. Okay, here's another picture here. Let's see if I can, there we go. So if you turn this machine around, that's the machine I was talking about earlier, there's a buffing wheel on there. And after building a few guitars in Brazil and finishing these things in my apartment with a paintbrush, and I was using catalyzed urethane with a paintbrush, I figured, I need some way to buff these things. And so I went back to a tool designer and had him make a shaft, a metal shaft that's mounted to the back of the machine. I swapped the drive belts out, and I drive the buffing machine there. And that thing spins faster than most buffers. Most buffers spin at about 700 to 800 RPMs. Mine spins at 1750. It's quite fast. And I was doing a lot of catalyzed urethane, which is very hard finishes, a hard finish, and I find it works fine and gets the job done a lot sooner. However, if you're working with lacquer, you got to be very careful not to burn through it. And I've learned to work with it. I even buff shellac with it occasionally, but you got to be careful. So if that's one way of buffing, I use a power tool for that. StewMac has a very nice buffing system that they offer. Also, if you're into doing it by hand, you can use a buffing wheel or a bonnet plugged into a cordless drill and some liquid polishing compounds. It's a lot more work and a lot messier, but it can be done. This was the solution that I came up with, and it has worked for me quite well over the years. John has a quick question. Robbie, would you post contact information for the Florida-made table saw that you mentioned? Best regards. Yes, maybe Cesar can do that down in Brazil. It's called the Burns table saw, Byrnes. And he makes a lot of different machines. They're all out of machined aluminum, very nicely done, very pricey, but very good and very precise. Used for model makers. The Burns table saw is one that my students have gotten over the years. He also has, I think, a very small thickness sander for doing like balsa wood parts and stuff for ship making and model airplane making. I think he may have a bandsaw and other things. But Cesar, if you could maybe post something about that. It's called the Burns, Byrnes. I get no kickback for promoting him, but he does a great job of the tools, and some of my students have bought from him over the years. The Big Swede, if you are considering the StewMac Safety Planner, here's a link to a video you should watch. Very good. I don't know what link that is, but I also have a couple of links on my website about how to use the safety planner, how to set it up, and how to use it. Maybe that's the one that the Big Swede is referring to there. Look at that. Cesar has put up the link to the Burns model machines. Thank you, Cesar, for doing that. All the way down there in Brazil. Man, isn't technology amazing? Cesar and Manuela down there in Brazil, boy, they help me run these live streams here and keep me on task here. So appreciate that. If you're into model making machines, very well quality, very good, nice quality. Okay, back to the power tools here. By the way, we have 52 people watching here this morning. I appreciate you tuning in. You've noticed that I've changed the time. I usually do this on Saturday mornings. I changed the time, mixed it up a little bit, put it on Friday morning because my son, who is a hockey ref, has been going up the ranks in the Hockey Referee Association, and he has been scheduled to do a Junior Eagles hockey tryout session in Greeley, Colorado tomorrow. So I've got to be there for that because that's a big deal for him. It's just like one step below getting up into it towards NHL level. So congratulations to my son for that, Mr. Thiago. We call him Mr. T. All right, moving right along here. There's the thickness sander. Now that is a great big industrial dual drum. Let me open it up here. Let's see. You'll see that I've got dual drums on that sucker. The first one I run 60 grit, the back one I run 80 grit. And that is pretty aggressive. It's going to leave some pretty serious marks in your product. So you've got to, when you're thicknessing your tops and your backs, you make sure you leave an extra tenth or millimeter or so that you can get all of that out when you arrive at your final measurement. So instead of, let's say you're going to 2.5 as a target measurement, I would stop at 2.6 or 2.65 to be able to sand those out. Now, the reason why I run 60 grit on the front and then 80 grit on the back is that I find that I don't gum those things up quite as much, because a lot of the woods that I work with are oily, exotic hardwoods, and those have a tendency to gum things up. Now, there are some things you can do, put them through sideways, speed the feed rate up, that kind of stuff that will take smaller bites that will keep from gumming those up. But some of the woods are just going to gum it up. Cocoa bolo is one that comes to mind. Macassar, ebony, others, highly exotic woods, there's a problem with that. So that's why I run 60 and 80 grit. I consider this tool a luxury item. If you have to have one, then okay. And there's some smaller ones on the market. Jet is one that comes to mind. They make a benchtop model. It's an open-ended 10-20, so you can get 10 inches and then 20 inches if you turn it around. They also make bigger models that are open-ended with their single drums. I just happen to have a dual drum in there, and it works well for what I do. Hey, there's Bo Hannon out there in Grand Junction, Colorado. 60 grit is hating wood. It does leave some pretty serious marks. However, I follow that up with an 80 grit on the back drum there, and that helps. All right, I'm going to take a swig of water here because I'm doing a lot of talking. If you have questions or comments, go ahead and put them in the chat box there. I'll get to them. Bo is a good friend of mine, lives all the way out there in Grand Junction, Colorado. It's about 3.5 hours west of me, and it's been quite hot out there lately, so I hope you're surviving out there, Bo. Somebody, let's see, who is this? SHG. How I have all 3 Burns machines and would trade them for anything else in my shop. Amazing tools. I think he meant to say I would not trade them for anything else, or would trade them. I'm not sure I quite understand. In other words, he just likes those tools. So yeah, I've heard great things about them. The problem in my shop is I'm running out of space. I'm to the point that if anything else comes in, something else has got to leave. And so that's why I haven't got the Burns tools here in my shop yet. Cocoa bolo is the worst. Boy, I hear you. If you go back to that other one, my other drum sander here, let's go back to it, the homemade one, you'll see that my belt is all gummed up there. That's because my last student here last week brought in some Brazilian rosewood, and we were thicknessing a bridge, and he gummed it up pretty bad. Now, part of that was my fault. The feed rate was taking too big a bite, didn't clean the belt. So there are ways around that. One of the other reasons why I like this homemade sander is there's no drive belt on it, and there's no tension bars. So I can shape the ends of my braces before I glue them down. I just pre-shape it on a bandsaw, pre-scalp, and then push it in and pull it out, and it's already to the correct thickness. So it's a huge time saver. You can also do that, with your chisel after the fact. Jorge or Jorge, depending on where you're from, Mexico or Brazil, has a question. Rabia and Tessarin in the same place. Fantastic. Unfortunately, I've moved from my city, Tatuí, a long time ago. So he's just right next there to Cesar. Cesar lives in a little town called Cerquillo in Brazil, and Tatuí is the next little city over. There's a great conservatory there. It's a nice music school, and it looks like Jorge used to live there. Jorge is the Portuguese pronunciation, by the way. Let's see. SH&G. It's Eric. Eric out there. I believe you're in California, San Diego. Eric, good to hear from you. Thanks for tuning in this morning. All right, let's keep right on going here. Let's see here. Let's get back to where we were. We were talking about drum sanders. I consider this a luxury item. It's a big industrial, 26-inch. Took me and about 3 other big guys to get this down into my shop. I work in my basement. And if I ever sell my house, that tool is going with the house. It's not coming back out of here. There's the dual drums. All right, let's get into routers. Routers are essential power tools. I think that every shop needs one. What you'll see there is a plunge router. I use that for setting the necks on my acoustic guitars. There you see me using the LMI neck joint jig. And a plunge router is fundamental. You have to have one of those. So get yourself a plunge router. Fortunately, those things are not an arm and a leg. They're very economical, especially here in the United States. Just a few $100 and you can get a very nice one. There we go. All right. I also have a big 3¼ horse or 3.5 horsepower router in a router table. You'll see that in there I have a flush trim bit. So I use that for flush trimming around peg heads. I also use a straight cut bit for cutting truss rod slots in necks. Anywhere you need some precision, then that's why I have the router table. And I think that's a fundamental tool. I use that a lot. Here on my bench, you'll see a series of handheld routers. These are laminate trimmers. And the very first one that you see there on the right-hand side, that one is in the LMI binding machine. And somebody earlier was talking about using binding machine or cutting binding channels by hand. I've done that. In fact, I have a video on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, how to cut your binding channels by hand. As one of my students used to say, it takes longer to F up your piece if you're doing it by hand. You can do it a lot quicker with the power tool. So there's the power tool that I use. I use the Bosch Colt to drive the binding machine, the LMI binding machine. Great tool. They just redesigned that, new and improved, and that's the new and improved version there. I haven't showed the back of it, so you can't see it. The next one that you see, that one there, is just set up for a flush trim bit. I use it for flush trimming the backs and sides, excuse me, not the back and sides, but the backs and tops to the sides once I close the box. Now, one of the secrets, and I show this in my 6-day acoustic guitar bending course, one of the secrets to building a guitar so quickly, and I do it in 6 days here with a student, is having dedicated tools set up and ready to go. If I only had one router in my shop and pulled that thing out, then I have to go find the bit, then I have to set it up, then I have to test it and make sure it's right. You're shooting down a lot of time. So if you just have a dedicated tool ready to go. Here in the United States, the power tools, the laminate trimmers are not very expensive. You can get them on sale for around $100 when they have the promotional things. And you can get those fairly cheap. So I buy those and I set them up and leave them dedicated. So that second one you see there is dedicated for flush trimming. The next one here is set up for, it's got a straight, a 1/4 inch straight cut bit in there. What I use that for is slotting the kerfing in the sides for the binding, or for the braces on the back and the top. Those that go all the way through the sides and the kerfing, I use that to quickly slot those. Ken has a question about a router bit. Let's see what we got here. What router bit would you recommend for cutting binding channels? I've been using a 1/4 inch downcut spiral bit and experienced some chip out along the sides. I think that chip out is more having to do with direction of cut, perhaps going against the grain, than perhaps the type of bit. I've used spiral downcut bits, I've used spiral upcut bits, and I've used straight cut bits. And they all work if you pay attention to that grain orientation. Since I'm using the LMI binding cutting system, I'm using their binding cutter, which is a rabbiting bit, straight cut type bit with a bearing on it to determine the width of the cut, the depth of the cut into the sides. So that's what I use. I know that Elevate, who is a sponsor on the Luthier Academy, they have a great binding cutting machine that uses a straight cut bit and very easily set up. So check them out as well. They also offer a great tool. Okay, the next one that you see down there, next laminate trimmer, I've got set up in a plexiglass circle cutting base. That is a homemade base. I made that years ago off some plans I got on the internet. And that one is used for doing classical guitar rosettes. The next one you see, and it's kind of hard to see down there, is a Dremel. And that Dremel is mounted in the, let me see if I bring up a picture here, is mounted in the LMI circle cutting base. And it has an LED light on it, so you can see all the mistakes. Look at that. So that's what I use to drive the LMI circle cutter, the Dremel. The Dremel is a great little tool. Here's a comment from Bo about routers. Now, I take a lot of what Bo has to say. I really consider his professional opinion because he's a professional luthier just like myself. And he has a lot of experience. He says he likes the cheap $25 Harbor Freight trim routers for non-precision jobs like flush cutting, top, back trimming after gluing them on. And that's a great tip. In fact, I used to buy into that. I had 3 or 4 of these cheap Harbor Freight trimmers, and I had an accident with one of those. There's a lot of run out in those, which doesn't really matter if you're doing flush trimming like Bo says. However, I had a bit slip out of one of those trimmers one time, and it screwed up a guitar pretty seriously, and so I stopped using those. But if you're into the lesser expensive tools and doing non-precision work like Bo said, then that's a great alternative. good quality routers for precision jobs like perf, lean, binding, and rosettes, etc. Okay. And Bo says he has 25 routers. I have a problem. Bo, you need a 12-step program. But I really don't think, I mean, routers are like clamps. I don't think you can have too many of them. So, when they go on sale, go ahead and buy a few of them and set them up and leave them for dedicated tools. That's one of the secrets I show in my 6-day acoustic guitar building course for getting things done quicker. All right, moving right along here. Sanders, there we go, handheld sanders. Now, if you do not want to purchase handheld sanders, you want to do it all, your own hand, your arm is your power tool in essence, then you can certainly do it. In fact, some people recommend not using power tools on your guitar because if you don't know what you're doing, it's very easy to leave sanding marks, swirl marks in your finish. Most people follow up power sanding with hand sanding anyway. However, I usually rough it on out up to about 320 with power sanders. And what you'll see here is on the right is a DeWalt, which is about a $50 tool. And I used one of those for about 10 years until I burned one up. I liked it so much, I went and bought a new one. The one on the left is about a $500 Festool. And I think I used the one on the right more than the one on the left. There's a couple of reasons for that. The DeWalt is a square pad, so I can use regular square sandpaper and make my own sanding sheets. And it's a little bit cheaper, more economical to run if you do that. I also use the Norton sandpaper, and I prefer it to the Festool sandpaper. Now, what I've got on that Festool now is a 5-inch disc. Those are a little bit more expensive, and I'm using an aftermarket brand that has a little better quality than the actual Festool brand. But another problem with that Festool is it being round like that. It's hard to get in the waist of guitars or instruments. It has a tendency to kind of take off on you, and the square pad doesn't do that. I can get in there with a little more precision in the waist of with the square pad. But I have them both. All right. Let's move on along here. Next picture. This is a spindle sander, an oscillating spindle sander. I had buyer's remorse when I bought this. Now, I bought this about 10 years or so ago when Mike Snyder and I filmed the electric guitar building course, which is available as an online course on my website. And Mike said, hey, we're going to need that for the filming. Go ahead and get one. And back then it was about 150 bucks or so. Got it from Home Depot. Had buyer's remorse. Sat in the corner for a while. But I tell you what, that thing has grown on me over the years. When you need it, you need it. And it works really good. For example, on my classical guitars, the end of the fretboard has the same shape as the sound hole. And this little machine is fantastic for truing up that shape with the edge of the sound hole. So when you need one, it's great to have it, but I don't use it very often. All right, dust extractors, also known as vacuums. I used this little shop vac for years to extract the dust from my palm sanders. I had to adapt it to fit the Festool because Festool makes everything different. They're like Sony. Everything it doesn't work with other people's products. So I use that now just to clean the floor, but I did use it for a while to extract the dust from the dust sanders. What I use these days is the Festool, and that Festool, I've modified it and have the Cyclone dust collector on top of it, the separator there. Now, the Festool has gotten so expensive, you almost have to take out a second mortgage or give away your firstborn to even get one of those. But when you get one, I had buyer's remorse again for that for a while, but now I use it, and it's fantastic. I really enjoy that tool. You don't have to have the separator on top like I do, but I find that helps me keep those filters a little cleaner. All right, moving right along. To handle my big dust collection, I use the big Oneida. I've got a 5 horsepower hidden in the corner back there. That thing is also quite pricey, but I've got ductwork running all over the shop, and that thing helps extract all of the dust and chips in my shop. And so I'm really fond of that. Got a filter on it that goes down to like 0.1 micron or something like that. I just see that Cesar put up a friendly reminder in the chat box there. Leave your entry to today's drawing and exclusive coupon by following the link at the top of the chat box. Thank you, Cesar, for doing that because I neglected to mention that. Here in just a few minutes, we're going to be giving away my 6-day acoustic guitar bending course. And you have to click on that link, give me your name and your email address so that I can draw, or Cesar and Manuela down there in Brazil can do the drawing and find the winner. Also, just for watching the stream today, you're going to get an email coupon for 10% off on any of my online courses. I think everybody's time is very valuable, and I just want to say thank you for spending some time with me here this morning. Herman has a quick question here. I use a Dremel with a 3/32 downcut bit for routing saddle slots. Is there a tip about not letting grab the bit into the wood when reaching the end of the slot? Yeah, very, very small bites. Rather than doing it one pass, I do it in multiple passes. Now, what I use for routing that saddle slot, especially on my steel string guitars where it's at an angle, has compensation on it, I use a laminate trim, or excuse me, I use my plunge router with a 3/32 bit in it, and I take it in depths. I go about a 32nd each time, so multiple passes is what I'm trying to say. All right, now somebody, let's see, Eric, what about the best tool in your shop? Duke. Now I've got some sad news about Duke, and I haven't broadcast this. Duke, a lot of you recognize the name Duke. Duke was the shop dog, and I wasn't prepared to talk about this, but since Eric brought it up, I should have had a picture ready to go. But the shop dog Duke has passed away. He had bone cancer this past year. It's only been a month or two, and we're still feeling the effects of it here at the shop. Everybody that shows up to take a class says, "Where's the shop dog?" So we are really missing the shop dog, and may he rest in peace, because a lot of you met him personally, and he was a great companion here in the shop. So rest in peace there, Duke. All right. I have included this in the power tool section here. It's not really a power tool. This is a humidifier. But if you live in a dry climate like I do, you need to humidify your shop, and you usually have to plug that in. So that's why I call this a power tool. My shop's about 1,000 square feet or just under that. And it is this little tool here, the ultrasonic mist maker, is not enough to take care of that. So what I've done is I've gone out and made, and I've taken the lid off to take a picture of that and show you. That is the ultrasonic mist maker. I've got the largest one they make, which is 12 disc, and it really puts out some mist. I mean, it's like a fog machine. I have a video on YouTube, a Luthier Tips du Jour video, that will show you how to make one of those. And if you're living in a dry climate, I highly recommend you have some type of humidification device. If you are working in a small shop and you don't need a lot of humidification, sometimes just the store-bought humidifiers like that first one I showed you work very well. If you're working in a humidified environment that's too humid, like I used to in Brazil, then you need some type of dehumidifier. I included those in the power tools section, and you're going to have to have something like that. This is not a power tool, but it gives you a lot of power. This is the Guitar Builder's can of whoop ass. Now, all of you Americans out there recognize this as a play on words, Guitar Builder's can of whoop ass. If you ever get yourself into a sticky situation, this thing will help you get out of it. And sometimes just having this on the bench next to your work, like cutting binding channels or something like that, it adds a degree of security. You feel a little bit more secure as you're doing it. This is when I used to teach at the college, we used to have this as a running joke, Guitar Builder's can of whoop ass. And if you'll look down in the section here, down here, there's a description of how to use the product. I won't read the whole thing, but one of the things here it says is that please keep in mind that no amount of whoop ass can adjust for the malady of being a dumbass. In other words, it won't completely save your behind, but just having it on the bench makes me feel a bit more secure about certain steps that I'm doing in the guitar building process. Now, all of you foreigners out there that are watching this, I always get emails after the fact about what does whoop ass mean. So you guys Google it and figure it out, because it's kind of an American play on words in the English language. Steve Strings have a quick question here or a comment. Add a nice big tropical fish tank to the shop as well. Yeah, that would do it. Sure, that's one way to humidify it. All right, coming to the end here. Cesar, get ready down there in Brazil. We're going to go ahead and do the drawing here in just a couple of minutes. Here's another power tool that doesn't plug in, but I think having that thing on my head, either the Lutherie Academy highly coveted ball cap or the O'Brien Guitars ball cap, really helps when you're in the shop and makes you feel like you're a king of the nest. Although if you work out of your home like I do, we all of us gentlemen know that we don't own the place. All right, so I hope you enjoyed that presentation on power tools there. Remember to subscribe to my channel. Certainly appreciate all you people that watch and spend time with me here. I think the time is very valuable, at least mine is. And so I hope you appreciate the time that I'm taking to do this. And I certainly appreciate the time that you're taking to tune in and watch here. Couple of quick announcements again. The safety planer I mentioned at the beginning of the video chat here, or the live stream, is 15% off. I think Cesar has posted that in the chat box here. Also, in the video description on YouTube, I've put a link to YouTube. There's also a link to the sponsors on the Lutherie Academy website. So please take a trip over to their websites. If you need anything, make sure you hit them up. Subscribe to my channel as well. Click on the link. We're getting ready to have the drawing here in just a couple seconds. Click on the link, name and email address, and I think that should do it. Also, if you click on that link, put in your name and email address. Here in a little while, you're going to be getting an email that will give you a 10% off coupon for any of my online courses. And hats are a plus. Look at that. Did you guys hear? I don't know if that just came through here, but we have replaced the shop dog with a shop cat. That cat just came down here and meowed behind me, scared the crap out of me. All right, let me see if I can pull up Cesar down there in Brazil. And hang on just a second. Here comes Cesar. There he is, Cesar and Manuela.
Oh.
Cesar, how many people have entered the drawing?
So today we have 56 people.
56 people in the drawing. Fantastic. All right. Let's see. Robbie, is it possible sharing the video with Cesar? What video is he talking about? That's Georgie down there in Brazil. I'm not sure which video he's talking about. Not sure. Anyway, I am sharing his video now, if that's what you're talking about. I think he wanted to see you. Maybe that was it. All right. So here's Cesar and Manuela down there in Brazil. Everybody's ready. We have how many people, Cesar?
So we have 70 people watching and 56 people in the drawing.
56 people in the drawing. All right. Manuela is going to do the drawings. So she's got a little iPad. Cesar's written a little program there. When you're ready, go ahead and push it.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Here we go. That's a random number drawer there. Number 32. Who's number 32? You want me to share your screen there, Cesar?
Yes, please.
Let's see if we can do that. All right.
32 is Dave Latour.
Dave Latour, congratulations. You are the winner for my latest course, which is the 6-day acoustic guitar building course. And thank you, Cesar and Manuela down there in Brazil, for doing that. I'm going to put you back off screen here. I'm going to pop back up here.
Perfect.
There we go. All right. So let's see. It says the drawing link isn't working for me. Is it still open? I believe it's not open, and that's probably you clicked on the wrong link. There was 2 links in the chat box. The one at the very top is the one that's operable. So don't worry. I do shop talks fairly frequently. This is shop talk number 22 already, and I usually give away stuff. So if you didn't get anything this time, you'll get something next time. And you also get that 10% off coupon that I'm going to email to everybody. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe to the O'Brien Guitars YouTube channel. If you like the Shop Talks, there's a playlist on the YouTube channel. You can go back and watch all of the other ones previously. So thank you very much. Over and out. Everybody have a nice weekend.